things don't always go according to plan. Things can sometimes get wrecked. I may take things like this a little too far.
I can't quite figure out what she's doing with these people yet.
Kind of just that little ugly spot on the back of your shirt you just decide isn't there.
So that's given us everybody's races and their classes. So the next thing that comes to characters, and this is, I think, I'm kind of mixed on this. Because I think it's cool, and I think I really like the emphasis, is your background. So they really want to put some focus on the story of your character. Who is your character? Where do they come from? And that background carries with it some mechanics.
Oh, okay.
And that's the part that I'm a little bit mixed on. Remember I said your background would come in later, and it would give you some more things. So your background will be a little bit about kind of who you are. And I'm just going to pull the very first example of a background that they give is the Acolyte.
Which is handy because that's the one I've looked through and chosen.
Okay. So we're going to talk about our cleric
You
Acolyte.
are super prepared, all right.
I've read the book already.
So as an Acolyte, the Acolyte, what is an Acolyte? An Acolyte is a person who has spent their life in service of a temple to a specific god or pantheon of gods.
Which is handy because you're a cleric.
You think?
So
Should be a weird rogue. Should be an awesome rogue.
What's your intelligence score again?
I don't know, yeah, I've just decided. My lowest stat is an 8, but...
So as an Acolyte, you pick up 2 skill proficiencies, one in insight and one in religion. You also pick up 2 languages.
Oh.
So I will put out the disclaimer, by the way, that as a DM, I don't like forcing language too much as a key point of the campaign.
Okay.
Just because, one, everybody in the party will speak common, so you can all speak to each other. That's good. Having a party where you have somebody like, I'm going to pick on the barbarian, right? And the barbarian only speaks his native tongue, say orc. No one else in the party speaks orc. That becomes a problem for the fact that you try and roleplay through constantly, how do we talk to the barbarian? And at a certain point, telling him, your character doesn't know that, your character doesn't know that, your character doesn't know that. It strains the role-playing experience. So while it can be cool for some limited role-playing encounters, I don't like to make language a big part of the game because when it comes into play too frequently, it can kind of frustrate the group a little bit.
Okay.
About the best use for language I have is when you have that one, there's a language that only one person in the party speaks. It can be fun to force that one player if they're not usually like the spokesman of the group. So it's the orc, right? He's the only guy who speaks orc, and now the barbarian, who's not usually the front man of the group, has to take lead on doing something diplomatic because he's the only one who speaks orc.
Oh.
Which means get ready to be run out of town.
So you can do some fun role-playing encounters with it, but it's not one of my favorite go-tos
Okay.
to put a lot of emphasis on. And I don't like to see players agonizing for too long about, did I pick the right languages? Am I going to be able to talk to everything I encounter?
That makes sense.
It just becomes more of a stumbling block. But you do get extra languages, so you speak to everything. So they give you some things with each of the backgrounds that are some suggested characteristics. They give you some personality traits. And just as an example, you don't have to keep these.
Okay.
But to show off the system a little bit, we're going to have you roll the personality of your character.
Okay.
Okay?
I probably
So
will not end up keeping it, but
we're going to start. You're going to roll 1d8 for a personality trait.
okay. 7.
So 7. 7 is, I've enjoyed fine food, drink, and high society among my temple elite. Rough living grates on me.
Well, that's inaccurate.
Roll a d6 for your ideal.
6.
6. Aspiration. I seek to prove myself worthy of my God's favor by matching my actions against his or her teachings. So,
That one might actually be
Maybe.
accurate.
another d6 for your bond.
Bond.
6 again.
6 again. I seek to preserve a sacred text that my enemies consider heretical and seek to destroy.
Yeah, not so much.
And we're going to have you roll 1d6 5 times for flaws. No. Do you just want them all? We can just give them all to you. Roll 1d6 for a flaw.
2.
2. I put too much trust in those who wield power within my temple's hierarchy. Blind obedience to the archdiocese.
Well, maybe sort of.
You could wind up with some very interesting characters this way.
So
Yeah.
it's a neat way if you have no idea how to approach a character to go look through, and some of these lend themselves, obviously Acolyte lends very well to Cleric.
Right.
Some of these will lend very well in an obvious way.
Paladin as well, I think.
To say, I can pick a background, and then if I need some like starting points for building a character and a personality, I can just roll that and get there. You don't have to pick anything. You don't have to pick a personality trait. You don't have to pick an ideal. You don't have to have a bond. You don't have to have a flaw. These are suggested role-playing things. And so if this can especially be handy when, you know, we've done something really nice with the group here. Everybody's playing a different type of character, right? You might be the person who shows up to the group and is like, man, who wants to be the cleric? And everybody goes, not it. Right? And we've been in those groups where everyone goes, not it, I'm not going to be a cleric, or I'm not going to be, you know, it's like, guys, somebody needs to be a warrior. We need, not it.
Bard.
And nobody needs to be a bard.
Not arguing.
So if you get that one who's like, fine, I'll be a cleric, but you don't usually play them, you aren't, you know, you have no clue where to start putting together something like that, you can go to your backgrounds and roll some dice and come up with a starting point.
Okay.
So that's
The other nice thing is if you have two very similar characters, like if you have a large enough party where you have maybe a wizard and a sorcerer, your backgrounds can differ those characters significantly. So
Yeah.
they're not just carbon copies of each other.
Well, another thing they like to use it for in 5th edition is that whenever you play to your flaws, bonds, ideals, or personality traits, it's a key for your DM to be able to give you an inspiration bonus if that was to be like, oh, well, I always hate orcs, so maybe I'm going to hit a little bit harder on orcs. And then you would get to decide whether or not, okay, that aligns, that makes sense, I'll give you a +2.
Yeah, you're not getting those, so don't worry.
Well, I might hit an orc. Just half of you.
The other thing I think is really nice is it fleshes out more dimensions to a character, just like you're talking about with you can play to your flaws, you can play to your ideals and these kinds of things. It gives you a dimension beyond your alignment.
Yeah.
So, you know, the standard alignments are pulled forward and they really haven't changed virtually ever over the course of Dungeons and Dragons. We've been using the same
Was it 9?
9 alignments for a long time, and there hasn't been a lot of change. It's been a system that's worked just fine. We have plenty of memes about alignments out there, and you know, plenty of alignment grid memes for a good reason. It's a good system, but this gives you a little bit of extra in addition to that.
Might be actually a really cool way to make a really fast NPC as well, if you needed to.
It is. It really gives you, from a DM perspective, it gives you a quick hands-on. I'm going to create a noble, and if I need mechanics on a noble really quickly, I've got something I can look at.
Yeah.
So let's go now to our half-elf. And have you looked over the backgrounds? Did you have anything in mind?
I briefly looked in through there, and I think the one that really shouted out to me was entertainer.
Oh God.
Because I thought about it. Like
The
originally,
direction he is going with this is so problematic.
So we have a Vegas showgirl wild mage.
It's part of his act.
no, that's the half orc with no clothing.
He's your backup dancer.
Oh, there we go. I thought about making a very serious character, and I know from being a wizard for many years playing one, you can make a very incredibly dangerous one, and I really thought about that. But what's funnier though,
So what we have is a half-elf version of Siegfried and Roy.
Actually, I was thinking they'd be great conmen. He provides the flashy distraction while he goes in and picks the pockets.
It's true.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have never done something so lowly in my
I think
life.
we've got a background.
I'm keeping a tight grip on my.
Where are you
purse.
holding your wallet?
You don't want to know. You don't want to know.
So
He does.
all we have to do is figure out why an acolyte of an esteemed order of thunder gods is hanging out with you two lowlives and the smelly half-orc.
She's the sound effects, like thunder and lightning, pyrotechnics.
I want to go home.
Let's take this show on the road.
Just remember, he's the one out front saying, "Look at me." He's the one who can actually take a hit, but he's the one saying, "Look at me."
He's the roadie.
That's why the boulders hit him.
Oh, damn it.
Okay, so as an entertainer,
Okay.
you get 2 bonus proficiencies: acrobatics and performance.
Perfect.
Okay. Acrobatics and performance. I get both those?
Yep.
That's going
You
to be
get
so useful for him.
2 tool proficiencies: a disguise kit.
Might be useful.
I'm just gonna leave it alone.
Yeah.
That depends on if you're blue. Everybody's going to recognize you.
Okay. I get disguise kit.
And 1 type of musical instrument:
Oh, what are my options?
Tuba.
kazoo.
No, I'm not taking a kazoo.
Tuba.
I'm not taking a kazoo. Where would I put a tuba?
Pipe organ.
With the pipe organ. Weapon proficiency pipe organ.
You
Okay.
could just, when the party fails, just go wah wah wah.
So you get a
Instruments on the
variety
road.
of different routines.
Okay. Routines. Okay.
You get a variety of different routines, and it says choose 1 to 3 routines or roll. So here's what I'll let you do.
Okay.
Okay, since it really throws that open to you, is I'll let you either pick 2 or roll 3.
Ooh.
So if
Okay,
I roll,
so here's the
okay.
list.
Okay.
Here's the list: actor, dancer, fire eater, jester, juggler, instrumentalist, poet, singer, storyteller, or tumbler. You can pick 2, or you can roll a d10 3 times.
kind of like actor. What else was there again?
Dancer, fire eater, jester, juggler, instrumentalist, poet, singer, storyteller, tumbler.
Ooh.
If you pick Jester.
If he picks Fire Eater, we're going to have to change it to 15 feet away at all times.
Fire eater.
We did not come up with the drunkard background, so at least we don't have to worry about explosive fire eating.
Ooh, I'll have to think on that.
I think you just need to roll dice, Mr. Chaotic Mage.
All right. Do I have to keep these results?
You need to roll using a d10.
Oh. Okay.
Did you bring d10?
I got a whole ton of dice here. I got it. 3.
Fire eater.
Oh, God.
I'll think on that one. Fire eater. All right.
Roll again.
10.
Tumbler.
Tumbler.
Please don't combine
One
those.
more time.
Oh,
And
someone shot
10
a
again, so-
fireball.
No, roll
Oh,
again.
nope.
Yeah, let's get something different.
7.
7 would be a poet.
That is so not me.
So you're going to be tumbling and eating fire while reciting poetry.
That sounds like a wild mage to me.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
the
obviously you can play with this a little bit and,
While
and look
2
into
feet
it.
tall and blue.
You know, we might make a lot of good money out of that.
By the way, one of the variants
Sorry,
they provide for entertainer is a gladiator.
I
that is
saw
so not gonna be. I'm not gonna be that.
So it's an interesting thing that they do as a hey. There's a little bit different of an approach to this. It's
That's
a very
kinda
different
cool,
kind
though.
of showmanship involved in being a gladiator. So they
Alright.
throw that out
I
there.
kind of like that.
So for our half orc, have you looked at these? Do you have an idea?
I have none.
Okay, so for our half orc, let's just go through top to bottom the list, and when we hit something that sounds cool, call it out. So we know what an acolyte is. There's a charlatan, a criminal. I think we already know where that's going to go.
Nope.
Okay. The entertainer we've talked about. A folk hero.
There I am.
A guild artisan.
We have like Beowulf over here.
A
with
hermit.
the hero.
A noble. An outlander. A sage.
What's an outlander?
An outlander. You grew up in the wilds, far from civilization.
Yeah, not so far.
That would have been you.
Raised by wolves.
Sailor. Soldier. Urchin.
I'm kind of caught between hermit and urchin.
Not outlander? Really?
Urchin. Well, this is really interesting as a half-orc to go with an urchin. An urchin is somebody who grew up on the streets alone, is orphaned, poor, had no one to watch over you.
Not a sea urchin. I just want to throw that out there.
No.
Okay, just
That
check.
would explain the blue, though.
And the spines. You could cut that lame joke if you want.
It's not.
So, urchin or hermit?
Yeah.
The hermit is somebody living off in seclusion. Now, keep in mind, interacting with the party, we have a temple acolyte and an entertainer so far. So, as you line yourself up to be strongly antisocial, do consider the impact of that in interacting.
Does
with the party.
bashing people's faces in count as social interaction?
Yeah. I think it's a way that
Yeah,
you
that
communicate.
could be bonding time.
Yeah.
For a
So,
barbarian.
so you might want to rethink that hermit.
A
Yeah.
bonding time for a barbarian and a floating sorcerer.
I'll let you know now. If you end up 2 feet tall, you're going with my wallet.
Oh.
Oh,
All right,
God.
So what are we thinking?
I feel vaguely.
I think I'm gonna go with urchin.
We're gonna go with urchin.
That's kind
so
of a cool story.
I think this is kind of a cool
Yeah.
story. I can see this kind of half-orc that, unlike the traditional half-orc that maybe grew up in a more orcish setting, this is the half-orc that grew up on the streets where they were discarded in human society.
And you have anger issues.
Barbarian.
So
Don't be blaming humans for this, alright?
this
Oh, I
is
blame human.
this is interesting. So skill proficiencies, it's going to give you sleight of hand, and you're going to be another person in the party with stealth. So
That's
we're going to
scary.
we're going to have a barbarian who can sneak up on people.
But no armor check penalties because he's not wearing armor.
So that actually does build out a mechanically interesting character.
Yeah, it does.
I'm down with that.
Tool proficiencies, we have a half-orc with a disguise kit. And you are proficient in thieves' tools.
Well, apparently I'm not going to be useful anymore.
No. My main
So-
thing is fighting.
This is one of those other really
I'm a
interesting
pretty
things.
lady.
What?
That's him in his disguise kit.
Somebody cue up the
Got
dude
the-
looks like a lady.
So this is one of those
Oh my
interesting things
God.
about what the
gonna be
backgrounds
the
can
Joker.
do to a character, because we were talking earlier about that, nobody wants to be the whatever, insert role X.
Yeah.
We have a barbarian who can pick locks.
So
True.
if the trap kills the rogue, we have a backup.
So you can, with that background, you
He's
can,
testing it after I say it's disarmed.
I'm scared of the barbarian half-orc that can sneak up on you.
Yeah,
That's
I am
true.
also fighting.
I really think, all of a sudden having that barbarian half-orc behind you and,
Well, he can also pick locks, so imagine the sorcerer who's sleeping in his bed
Whoa.
and then just wakes up to the naked half-orc staring at him.
You wake up to the whore.
This is going to a very dark place, and I don't like it.
All right.
I need an
Cast a
adult.
spell.
So
See what
we've got our urchin orc. So Josh, what are we looking at with
Noble.
You're a noble
rogue. Yep.
Okay,
Nice.
you are the disgrace of the family.
Actually,
black sheep there.
they're a disgrace to me, actually.
Okay.
So they're poor.
No, they're rich, but I don't need them.
As a noble, your bonus proficiencies are history and persuasion.
That'd be good.
Oh, good. Persuasion.
Hey, me too.
And you gain a tool proficiency in one type of gaming set, be it cards or dice.
Awesome.
One type of gaming set you gain proficiency in.
Do we have chess in this world?
I imagine so.
I'm going to say chess.
You were boring.
You're not going to win money at dice. You're not going to win us the money.
I play dice.
You could.
I just
Here,
happen to
roll
be
a seven.
proficient in chess. You don't know that.
He's seen the Harry Potter movie a few too many times, and he's getting ready to line up for his first match of wizard chess. He's sure that's key to survival.
That will be the end of this adventure, Jason.
I think everybody has, and it's not going to happen in this game, but everybody has played in at least one game where you walk into the room in the dungeon and it's laid out like a checker or a chessboard,
Yeah.
and you're trying to figure out which squares you're supposed to step on.
I hate that. I hate it.
Yep.
All right.
That city doesn't need to be saved,
So,
right?
Right.
It does give you an extra language of your choice, and we haven't really delved into equipment. I think I'm going to refrain from doing too deep of a deep dive in equipment tonight. I'll kind of leave you guys to flesh that out outside of this because it gets very granular very quickly. But there is an equipment set that goes with these backgrounds, and it can bring some extra gold with it. So maybe the barbarian who doesn't have a lot of starting gold, if you want him to be an armored barbarian, there are some more affluent, like noble, options that give you more starting gold.
Okay.
So
I do have a scroll of pedigree. I do want to point that out.
You do have a patent of nobility.
Yep.
So you can confirm that you're a bastard?
You can confirm that he isn't. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Despite what you might think of him personally.
Sort of. We'll talk about that later.
So
Sure, it's not important.
that I think rounds out the vast bulk of building and setting up characters until we get into equipment and things get a little bit more minute. But without getting too much into equipment, right? I do kind of want to get a sense, what are people thinking about for weapons? You know, that weapon becomes the signature defining thing of so many characters, what they fight with. So what are you thinking? What is this thunderous cleric actually thumping people with?
I haven't really looked into the combat mechanics a whole lot, so is it possible to dual wield at first level without taking too many penalties?
You are asking all the right questions.
So dual wielding. Let's get into dual wielding because it's interesting how it works. And two weapon fighting. So two weapon fighting. When you take the attack action and attack with a light melee weapon that you're holding in one hand, you can use a bonus action to attack with a different light melee weapon that you're holding in the other hand. You don't add your ability modifier to the damage of the bonus attack unless that modifier is negative.
Okay.
So, yes, there is definite two weapon fighting, and no, I haven't seen anything, and we can go back and check for this later and do a deep dive, because as I went through the combat mechanics, I didn't really see anything that made it exclusive to a class or a fighting style or anything like that. You know, it really is fairly directly straightforward. That it feels like the balance in two weapon fighting is that number one, they restrict it to light weapons. Number two, you only ever get the one attack with the offhand, and that attack, unless you have other stuff coming from somewhere else.
Or you're a fighter. They have some very specific things fighters can do.
Right.
I'm sure Rangers do too, maybe. Or...
there's some very specific things coming in elsewhere that may offset that, But this is where you get into one of the principles, and they talk about this at the very beginning of the book, where they say specific rules beat generic rules. And so they would say the generic rule for two-weapon fighting is that if you have two light weapons, you can take a bonus action with the other one. That's the generic rule. Specifically, if you have a class feature or some other magical item or whatever it is that says for your specific character, you can use a medium weapon, a non-light weapon, and still do two-weapon fighting. Or you can attack twice with your offhand, or you can get your bonuses to your offhand. That's a specific rule for you, and that specific rule takes precedence over the generic rule that says this is how two-weapon fighting works.
Okay.
So, yes, you can two-weapon fight.
I was considering a pair of daggers or long knives or whatever there are.
So, a couple of things. One, dagger. You can definitely dual-wield daggers. They are considered light. The other thing about dagger is they are considered finesse weapons. So you can use elf with dexterity. You can use your dex bonuses instead of your strength bonuses if you so choose with daggers as a weapon. So that definitely gives you an option. What about our mage? With your massive list of options, are we looking at a staff wielder hits people with his stick, or are we looking at something else?
So correct me if I'm wrong. I know wizards could create scrolls. And the reason I'm asking is weapons, mages, sure, okay, yeah, I'm going to hit something.
Every single mage needs it at first level.
At first level, you're going to run out of spells.
Yes.
Oh, no, I know that. But am I able to create scrolls to just use those instead of running out of
I
spells?
don't recall if I've seen this in the PHP.
I think we're getting into DMG territory.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
With creating magic item rules that we don't have.
I was kind of concerned about that.
So I would, but here's the thing: I wouldn't bank on a first level character being able to create and propel their way with expendable magic items.
That's fair. Okay.
Especially not session 1 at level 0. Or level 1 as it is.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. I've got simple weapons as my only
Not even simple.
Okay.
You've got a very specific list.
You're a ranged character.
Well, he is allowed to thump with a stick if he so chooses.
I don't really recommend that.
I
But you are
promise
very
I
squishy.
don't have burning zombies on the list of...
Oh, not this time?
Not this time. No. So you don't have to...
Sucked. Especially when it ran to the orphanage and we're like, well, that's a problem.
I'm also not going to slaughter orphans in this game. Except maybe the urchin. That's why you roll a backup character. So, let's see. Your very specific list. Pages, and more flipping pages.
Right.
So, dagger, darts, slings, quarterstaves, and light crossbows.
Light crossbow, I guess?
So you're going to go with the crossbow.
Yeah, I'll fire one
So-
every other round.
That's the thing to remember is that it does have all of the weapons have properties.
Yeah.
And so light is a property. A light weapon means you can dual wield a light weapon.
Oh.
Okay? Crossbow has a property of loading. So what loading means is that there is some load time.
So it's a light and a loading weapon?
Actually, no. A light crossbow is not light.
Oh.
A light crossbow
Dang.
Can't dual wield them.
That would have been awesome.
has the properties ammunition. You can run out of ammo.
Of course.
Range,
It's, yeah.
loading,
It's a touch crossbow.
and two-handed.
Oh.
A light crossbow is two-handed.
Yes.
I was kind of hoping for like Scarface, crossbow.
Say hello to my little friend.
Say hello to my light friends.
Hold on. I gotta reload.
So what loading does, because of the time required to load this weapon, you can only fire one piece of ammunition from it when you use an action, bonus action, or reaction to fire it, regardless of the number of attacks you can normally make. So no, it doesn't limit you to one attack per round. Or to one every other round or that kind of thing. you know, you remember the older
Yeah.
D&D crossbows where it was like the light crossbow you could fire once a round, the heavy crossbow you could it only every other round because you had to wind and crank it, right?
You know, the repeating crossbow.
But it does mean that you will not be able to use it for attacks of opportunity or things of that nature because you would have to load it.
Which that makes sense.
Yeah. What if it's already loaded?
Well, if that gets into a readied action.
Oh.
It
Okay.
says that you get one per turn.
But-
so let's say you get an attack opportunity before you fire. You fire, you can't fire it on your turn as your normal attack then.
All right.
Okay, so, but the neat thing as a sorcerer, right? You could go in with, say, as a readied action. I have my crossbow readied. Okay. When you get the opportunity to use that readied action, you could then, well, I should step this back. You can use that. The other thing that you can do is if you have an attack of opportunity, right? I'm waiting for something to expose itself to an attack of opportunity. Something does.
Naked barbarian.
You take that attack of opportunity,
That'll just make me
drop it,
mad.
and now you cast your spell for your normal action.
So I actually just had another thought. I'm
Okay.
actually thinking sling.
Okay.
Here's the reason why. Potions or explosive devices.
You want to sling Alchemist's fire.
Sure, I'd
That's
actually...
a fair tactic, actually.
50 feet away.
Remember, he took fire eating.
I haven't necessarily taken that yet, but I do think it's a
Can
good
I get
idea.
the extra piece of paper? I'm just going to make my second character now.
Here we go, man. Here you go.
So you're gonna be drinking
So
this
that-
alchemist
that
fire.
Alchemist's fire whirling around above your head. Remember, the one person it does not hit is the guy slinging it.
See, it's
I
it's a
remember.
win-win. It's a win-win.
Hey, we're going to put you in the
Feel free to
middle
hide
of the
behind the
goblin
orc.
horde.
What's that?
Talking to them, feel free to hide behind the orc.
So, for our half orc, what is your weapon of choice going into this?
Something either two-handed or unarmed.
Battle axe.
What do you mean? Well, unarmed. Okay, unarmed. You're going down the realm of monk. I mean, unarmed.
Like,
striking,
unarmed?
yeah.
I was also kind of thinking along the lines of that. Grew up on the streets, didn't really have anything.
Like a brass knuckle kind of thing?
But now you do. You're a barbarian now.
True enough.
Moving up
So,
in
yeah.
the world.
Maybe that's what inspired you. Is you found a couple of discarded battle axes, and you're like, you know what, barbarian.
You cannot
So-
dual wield battle
So, yeah,
axes.
two-handed then.
Two-handed. So
He
we've
was
got
5
some-
feet from a loot. He could have been a bard. That's all.
Opportunity missed.
We've got some interesting options as a barbarian with a two-handed weapon, and I just want to say thank you for giving a reason for the D12 to exist.
I know, poor D12.
You know, this is your hit die, and you're the, you know, it's been the joke for 20 years that the only thing you need D12s for is barbarians.
Yep.
Yep.
And great axes.
Well, that's
Which is from the barbarian.
exactly where I was
Wielding,
going.
wielding great
Yes.
axes.
The
That's
Great
right.
Axe gives you the opportunity to give the D12 further purpose. The Great Sword gives you the opportunity to use 2d6, which is actually statistically and mathematically better.
Yes.
But what's funnier?
But the Great Axe and the Great Sword are kind of the go-to two-handed weapons. Everything else that's two-handed really comes into the category of polearms. And I don't know about our barbarian and a polearm. I'm just kind of uncertain about that.
Maybe I could throw a spear.
So Great Axe or Great Sword? What's your thought?
I think I'm gonna go with the great sword because the lowest I can get on that is a 7.
Okay, I will throw this out there and make it one step more arduous for you to choose. The Great Sword is more expensive.
But if that's all you buy.
On the other hand, though, if I roll a 1 with the great axe, I can do less damage to my party members.
So
Wait,
that'll be
wait.
something when we.
That is an accurate comment. That is something to consider, I think,
So-
for all of us.
And this is one of those things that I was talking about earlier when I said that they use money as a portion of game balance. Is that there's a price premium for more consistent damage from the Great Sword. The Great Sword is going to do consistent damage in that range. Whereas you'll have greater swings with the great axe, and you pay a premium for that, and that comes out of your starting gold. So that'll be something to look at when we get your starting gold.
Then yeah, I'm gonna go with the great axe.
Think about that. Think about
it. Josh?
I'm actually going to go with what they recommend for the rogue starting equipment. So I'm figuring the rapier as a finesse weapon just makes total sense.
And it makes sense as a noble as well.
Yeah,
I
actually.
mean, for strength purposes, I see.
You know, one of the things that really kind of disappoints me about the rapier, from a mechanical perspective, is it's not a light weapon. So it is a finesse weapon, but dual wielding a rapier and an offhand stiletto, main gauche, that other fencing knife, is such a common thing that I was really surprised that the rapier isn't listed as light to enable that automatic dual wielding.
Are scimitars and rapiers nearly identical still, or?
Well, that's what the interesting thing is. A scimitar is considered light.
Huh.
Really?
What? I think entirely because they have to enable Drizzt to exist. I ain't gonna lie.
That sadly does make a lot of sense. Wait, but what about his arch enemy? His the other guy, didn't he have a rapier and?
Jarlaxle?
Sure.
Artemis.
Artemis, yeah.
No, okay.
It's been years, but didn't he have a rapier and a dagger?
Well, he was so badass. He could dual wield great swords if he wanted to.
It's true.
I want that dagger.
But the rapier, no, they're really not equivalent weapons in that sense because the rapier is D8 piercing damage, which is the heftiest damage I've seen on a rapier.
God, D8?
Wow.
It's bumped to D8. That put it in longsword territory, which is also D8. Although I'll get to a longsword in a second for something really neat on a longsword. That's new. But the rapier bumps up from our usual D6 that we're used to a D8, and it's a finesse weapon, inherently can use dex. So that's nice, but it's not light, so it doesn't enable that automatic dual wielding.
Now, the scimitar, is that finesse too?
Scimitar is both finesse and light.
Nice.
And here's the interesting thing. Scimitar and short sword are virtually mechanically indistinguishable.
They're both D6s?
They're both D6s. Short sword is a piercing weapon, whereas scimitar is a slashing weapon. They're both finesse, they're both light. So mechanically, the only real difference between your short sword and your scimitar is slashing versus piercing, which comes into play maybe fighting skeletons.
Right.
I'm sure that everyone's going to be asking the same question. Crit range. Is there such a thing in 5th edition? Like the 18 to 20?
Not from the weapon perspective. No.
Okay.
No, that's not something we're looking at from a weapon perspective where something is more likely to critical. And that was something in 3rd ed that we looked at a lot, is the rapiers had this huge crit range.
That could get ridiculous.
I've seen people critting on 8s.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie, with rapiers and expanded
Seen
critical.
or have done?
Well, now it's a Vorpal rapier. This'll be fun.
It's a keen Vorpal rapier.
Yeah.
We have to stack that on, man. Make it. How abusive can we make this?
You can only chop their head on a natural 20. Doesn't matter what your crit range is, guys.
You're a nerd, and we're playing D&D. Just want to put that out there.
Okay.
So, no, you don't really have that.
Okay.
So, here's the thing I wanted to mention on longswords for our elves in the party that are automatically proficient in longsword.
Oh, yeah, that's me. Partly, anyway.
Is something that they do which is called a versatile weapon. What the hell is a versatile weapon? Versatile weapon is what we used to love bastard swords for.
Oh.
It can be wielded one-handed or two-handed.
Oh.
So if you wield the longsword two-handed, you're doing D10s instead of D8s.
And you don't have to take a feat for that. No, that's awesome.
So
you had to take a
fact,
feat to get
That's
bastard sword.
yeah, for bastard sword, yeah.
In fact,
That even
bastard
less.
sword guys went away.
Really?
Really?
I liked bastard sword.
There is no bastard sword. Our swords are great sword, long sword, rapier, scimitar, short sword. Stop.
It'll be in another book, don't worry.
I don't know what they would add to it that would make it indistinguishable from a longsword.
Just up the damage, probably.
The ability for 12-year-olds to curse and get away with it.
Make it D10, D12, I guess.
Is there any exotic weapons at all?
We don't really have the notion of exotic weapons from 3rd ed. There are no spiked chains.
Oh wow!
I was hoping for something I could just turn into a taser, like throw the spiked chain out there and electrify it.
You could still get a chain.
It
I'm
would
glad it won't
sink
have
into your
sex.
flesh.
So it's really in a way gone back to
Not trust.
the most classic of historical weapons.
Right.
So
You're saying spike chains weren't historically accurate? Probably not. Just don't even worry about it.
they were awesome D&D weapons.
Okay.
They were annoying D&D weapons.
Yes, they were. We still have things like reach. You know, that notion of your pole arms having reach and being able to hit people at distance. That still exists. But we don't have the exotic weirdness.
Okay.
So, although I guess as close as you get to that is net, which has its own special things.
Yeah.
And there are some weapons that are listed as having a property of special, which means it has unique mechanics. And they could expand that category later on. But there aren't a lot of those right now.
Okay.
I like the ease of the categories, though. I think that's a really nice way to do it. And not have to explain so many properties, or every weapon has to get its own bold text.
And
Yes,
it
true.
really does cut you down to... I mean, we had second ed where you had to pick proficiency in each individual weapon.
Yeah.
And then later on in the brown books, they let you at least take groups, which was nice. You had your tight groups and your broad
I
groups.
remember that.
And that carried forward into third edition with your simple, your martial, and then each individual proficiency for an specific exotic weapon.
Okay.
And now we have just that simple, martial, or you have proficiencies in specific weapons that are dictated by your class, race, and background.
Okay.
So it takes away a lot of the, did I pick the right thing? And I really like the fact that if you have martial weapon proficiency and the DM says, you find a magic greatsword, you're not sitting here holding your great axe going, oh man, but it's a really nice greatsword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, you'll be able to adapt to the magical loot that you find along the way.
That's good.
I wonder if the same thing is true with fighters, if they have to take a specific weapon that they start to be very familiar with and specialize in.
Well, no one's playing a fighter, so we'll never know. Frag.
All right. I'm sorry. You're asking a question.
So there is one other piece of dice rolling for people who don't want to use the standard equipment that's just granted by your class and your background and whatever else. I will go ahead and say let's have an opportunity to roll your starting gold, and then you can go purchase your equipment. So for a cleric, these are numbers that are, if you're used to starting gold in other editions, some of these numbers are going to feel really weird. And clerics were one of the ones that were always lightweights for starting gold because most of your money belonged to your church.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you didn't start out quite as kitted out.
Temple. Go ahead. I'm just gonna start my nether character.
So as a cleric, you're going to start with 5d4 times 10.
Wow. Okay.
And in previous editions of the game, that would be fighter gold.
Yeah, that would.
Yeah.
That would be the gold that you would use for the guy who has to buy the heavy armor. So you, as a Tempest domain cleric,
One over there too.
has the ability to use that heavy armor. You may actually have the funds to buy it.
Okay. Mama needs a new pair of shoes.
There's no spike-heeled full plate. Just saying.
2, 4,
God.
6, 9.
That's 11.
110 gold starting. And Craig,
I actually don't even know what I
So-
start with.
this is
Thank you.
a little bit scaled back. So
Okay.
you're going to be 3d4 times 10. Excuse me, it's frag.
It's
so that's
D1s.
3d1 times 10.
D1s. All right. There's a one. Oh my god! I got a 4. All right. 7, 8.
So that's 80.
Okay, so it's either that or the starting equipment.
Or the starting
Okay.
equipment.
I think I'm gonna roll.
All right.
1d4.
So a barbarian is 2d4.
Wow.
Wow. Even I get more than you
So,
do.
and that's one of those things, right? We were all used to previous editions of the game. All of the warrior classes, the barbarian, the paladin, the ranger, and the fighter, would come in with these heavy amounts of starting gold for that big armor, but the barbarian, we've established, does not need the armor necessarily.
Not
So
bad.
50 gold. So great sword, by the way, is 50 gold and would wipe you out.
Oh.
What else do you need?
I can go naked.
No.
We're gonna assume you
No,
have
you're right,
clothes.
that's-
I will spot you 5 gold.
I actually have a set of nice clothes.
Would they fit a half-orc?
We'll make it. We will find
I smell
way.
a very fancy loincloth coming my way.
All right.
I'm worried you smell it.
So, and then just to showcase it, and I know you're not rolling, but Josh, a rogue would be 4d4.
Oh, apparently only have one before.
I already put mine away.
So in this case, you would have started with
100 gold.
100 gold.
Yeah.
So
But this way I started with a rapier, short bow, 2 daggers, leather armor, thief's tool, and explorer pack.
Which I'm sure would wipe you out. Or actually,
Way
you
past
probably.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually.
and this is the last thing I kind of want to highlight is just to make mention things that have shifted. Wizards. The idea used to be that wizards started with like 1d4 times 10 because they didn't need anything. I gave you your spell book and your robes. You couldn't wear armor, so you
Right.
didn't need anything, right? Wizards were these broke characters.
Yeah.
Wizards are 4d4 times 10.
Really?
Further
Nice.
question on equipment: do I have to purchase my holy symbol, or does that come with the class?
That is, I believe, part of the equipment you'll get from your background.
Okay.
That would make sense.
That would make sense if you got it from your class, though, if you're a cleric.
Well, if you're taking equipment given to you by your class, you're not rolling.
Oh, that's
this.
true. Okay. Okay.
This is giving you the option to roll starting gold and individualize your equipment.
Makes sense.
If you take it from the class, sure, the class will give it to you. But if you don't take the equipment from your class, you're going to have to go buy
I was
your
just
holy
curious if that was part of the starting pack, or if it just came with the class and was separate from the starting pack.
So for you, I'm just going to hit up your background really quick. The equipment granted by your background is a holy symbol, a prayer book or prayer wheel, 5 sticks of incense, vestments, a set of common clothes, and a belt pouch containing 15 gold. That comes with your background.
Oh, so she
So
already
you get
has
the
it
15
in-
gold on top of the 110 that I just rolled.
Okay.
And so, and yes, the background for Street Urchin does give you a little bit of stuff too. So the
You
background
owe
for
people
Urchin
money.
gives you a small knife, a map of the city you grew up in, a pet mouse, a token-
What? What?
The barbarian.
This big half-orc with a little
Half-orc.
pet mouse. Are
That's
you gonna
amazing.
love him and hug him and squeeze him and call him George?
George, the pet mouse.
Mouse.
You'll come up with another. Call him Mouse.
Guys, I make no promises to not kill that pet in the first session.
Call him
I'll
Mice.
just try and give it
The
a fitting-
internet will literally hate you. Literally hate you.
I make no promises to not accidentally kill your mouse in round 1.
I would recommend the mouse be the only thing that survives.
I thought an appropriately tragic death. You know, we need to give him motivation to choose the frenzy barbarian path.
There you go.
Do like a boat pyre.
Avenge your poor dead pet mouse.
I was about to say, Mickey!
Like how he just found out he got a mouse and we're already like, man, it's dead.
Yeah.
He
Yep.
didn't even know he had it 2 minutes
This is
ago.
like Steven Spielberg's directing.
I'm naming it Tickles.
You tickles, and
No.
we're going to have Tickles getting into trouble all
I
session.
already know the story of why they named it. It just it writes itself.
There actually is a story behind that name. That's my screen name online, and there is a story that he doesn't know.
Let's keep it that way.
There's a,
All right. So you do get some starting equipment with that. And the entertainer.
Okay.
Oh god.
I'm still disturbed by tickles. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
He's with my wallet. That's
Our
why he's
entertainer gets a musical instrument of your choice.
Woohoo!
Tuba.
Shut up.
Pipe
Shut
organ.
up.
Electric guitar.
Pipe
She's
organ.
got the light.
Oh, dude, that'd be awesome. Hold this.
No way.
I can't say this. It's incomprehensible.
You broke
Is it inconceivable?
Inconceivable.
He gets a favor from an admirer,
Woohoo!
which comes in the form of a love letter,
Yeah.
lock
buddy.
of hair, or other trinket.
That's creepy.
So somebody
Your number one
admires
fan.
the flag.
Oh God, no!
You don't want to know where that hair came
No,
from.
no, take it back.
Tickle says you should have this.
I'm burning it all. My gloves, I used to touch it.
Careful, you lose.
I'm creating a new character, and this guy can just die.
The sorcerer is taking his clothes off again.
Rocking back and forth.
You do also get a costume and a belt pouch with 15 gold.
Oh, sweet.
What's your costume?
I don't know yet.
Can it be a banana?
Peanut butter jelly time. Peanut butter jelly time. It's a cop.
What are we building the YMCA here?
Mine's an Indian.
No. Well, yeah, I was gonna say the barbarian, but
Construction worker.
Construction
yeah,
worker.
you're right. So what are you?
No one remembers the fourth one.
I'm tasing you guys.
So she's stage lights.
Jason, we need an NPC for the first one.
No,
Tickles.
no.
He's C.
Oh, he's the biker.
I just said tickles, and we all know it's a mouse, and I made a cat noise.
Don't kill
Well,
us.
I think this is good.
I
Anything
think
else
this
covered?
this kind of wraps up everybody's rough character.
All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot for Jason for being our DM for this. This is it for character creation. So coming up, we're actually going to sit down and play our characters. But before that, at the end of this, we're going to go through interviews and kind of talk through what our characters are, a little bit of our motivations, so you guys get an idea of what to expect when we screw it all up. So, all right, if you guys like this, like, subscribe below. Check out hardcorecasualgamer.com. Signing out, I'm Josh Courier.
The frag.
Danielle.
Aaron.
And I'm Jason.
Bye, guys.